So we have had 780 applications submitted in the week and a half that the program has been fully launched. So I wanted to celebrate that with you all and thank you for your part in it in terms of your help with applicants and getting the word out about the program. And we are at various stages of reviewing these applications, and but I wanted to let you know how well it's going, and the types of assistance that folks are looking for is kind of exactly what we expected. A lot of folks looking for help with utility assistance, but also with mortgage and property tax, and a smaller portion looking for help with property association fees. So that is a real quick overview of all of the activity we've had since the program launched. To get us started today, but we mostly want to talk today about the questions that you've been experiencing over the last week and a half as you get into the system, because we do have Rebecca Johnson with us, who is working with the experts on the portal system. And we also have our IT staff, Sarah and Dave, with us this morning, who can help us answer questions. Because I think that if you have a question, it's pretty likely that somebody from another agency is also experiencing the same thing. So we wanted to have a chance to talk about those experiences and help you overcome maybe some of the challenges that you're experiencing in the online portal. So with that, I was hoping to open it up to questions from you all. And there's a few other housekeeping things that I want to talk about before we sign off today, but I did want the bulk of this meeting to really be focused on things that you are experiencing and challenges that you're facing in the portal. So Shonda asked a question about the third-party authorization link not showing up, and I'm wondering if VHFA or Rebecca can help with that question.
Sure. This is Rebecca with Spiridian. Could you give me a little more context to where you are when you say that the TPA link is not showing up, kind of what that use case looks like for you? Because there are a couple of different scenarios that could be playing into that.
Okay, so I'm applying for just like utility assistance. I don't expect that third-party or authorization to be there, but when I'm applying for mortgage assistance, right before I submit the application itself, I'm looking for that link to upload the third-party authorization form, and I'm not seeing it. It's usually towards the end of the application process, or it's in the documents area, and
Sure.
It's not there.
So are you doing this through the applicant portal, or are you doing this from the back end?
The applicant portal.
Okay. Are you applying as a single applicant, or are you applying with a co-borrower?
Single.
Okay. That's exactly why you're not seeing it. So when you apply as a single applicant, the system will actually generate that TPA for the applicant, because we gather that signature when we get to that the certification part at the very end. That's all applied to your TPA. When you'll see that link is if you're applying and you have a co-borrower, right? We need to capture that secondary signature to say that we have, or third or fourth, or however many people we've got, to say that everybody is giving authorization for this information to be shared. So what will happen is if you, and it actually happens sooner in the process and not right at the end, it's when you get to that part where you're putting in the financial information and that kind of stuff, and then you'll get a thing that'll say, please download and upload. So you have to actually download the form, get it signed, and then re-upload the form. Now you can save and exit, you could do it another time, like there are some options, but you will not see that option unless the applicant is applying with a co-borrower The rest of the time, that's all handled for the applicant behind the scenes by giving their consent in the attestation at the very end.
Okay, thank you.
And then in the portal later on, after the case is processed, because it actually doesn't generate, excuse me, until later in the case management flow, when they're getting verification for the mortgage servicers, they will then be able to see that document in their documents window when they go back into their portal later on. But that's, you know, it won't just magically show up there like the next time they log in. It doesn't get generated until a little bit further down. Once they're deemed eligible, once we start reaching out to the mortgage servicer for verification, et cetera. So in case anybody has questions about that, asking you, why isn't it there? You said it would auto generate. It'll be a little while, but it does take care of itself.
Thank you, Rebecca. I think we have some follow-up questions about the TPA. Grace just asked, what if a borrower cannot get an ex-spouse or partner or co-borrower to sign a TPA? What happens in that event?
That becomes a case management issue. Case management would reach out, probably saying needs more information, right? Like if you put a TPA up there, it only has one signature, it needs two. It'll become a case management function. There are situations, you know, where there might be a domestic violence situation. There could be a situation where the spouse has passed. It could be a divorce situation where they never updated the, you know, mortgage details. There's a lot of, but then it becomes more of a, I don't want to say legal issue, but it's like maybe additional documentation is required, right, to support those cases. So that will be a one-on-one situation with your case manager to help resolve that for your applicant.
Thank you, Rebecca. We have a couple questions, and I still think we may have a few about the TPA. Michaela, did we answer the question that you had about the TPA, or do you still have a question about that? You do. We answered it? Okay. Great. Kira, do you have any outstanding questions about the TPA?
Hi there. No, that answered my questions. My question was really about something else.
Okay, thank you. Let's finish up with the TPA. Kayla, your question, Kayla wrote, is in terms of legal and housing counseling services, if people are already connected to housing counseling and legal aid, should they still answer yes in the system to that question? Oh, this is a different question. Okay. Okay, does anybody have any other outstanding questions about the TPA? We have hands up, so I know we've got more questions. Okay, thank you, Rebecca, for your help with that. Kira, what is your question?
Thank you, Leslie. So I called into the tech's whatever the technical assistance number this last week here, and looking for how to get to a paper application. And the woman that I spoke to, Nicole, wanted to point me to a link for affiliates, and I had told her I am the affiliate. I just need to be able to, and she was going to get back to me, but I never heard back. I didn't get a follow-up call. Is there some way that I can get a paper application?
Yes, we're going to send it. We are about to send out the paper application. I am going to chat it to you all, you know, like right now in this chat. If you may be able to download it as it'll be an attachment to a message here. If I'm able to, but do keep in mind that we're, oh, now I'm not sure I can do that. So we'll have to send that in a follow-up email message to you. Kira, thank you so much for asking. It's ready. We are being cautious with how widely it's available because we really want folks to work with an agency or try to use the online or phone system for submitting an application. But I will email it to you today. We have it ready, and we've sent it to a few of you, but we have not sent it to all of you. So thank you.
Leslie, I'd like to say one thing on that. Here, your comment was you called into the technical support line.
Yes.
I just want to clarify that call center is not a technical support center. Okay, it is a call center for applicants as well as HCAs, but mainly for the applicants to call in if they're having application assistance issues, if they have questions about the program. We do train them on some basic troubleshooting, like how to put in, the right kind of password, making sure they check their browser, different kind of access issues, but they are definitely not a technical support team. They then, if they have an issue that they can't resolve, they actually end up sending a technical support ticket to us. So I just wanted to clarify, like, if you are really struggling with technical support issues, to probably, and I don't know, Leslie, if we want to give them if we want to filter those through me for a little while, or if we want to give them the ticketing address, or how we want to address that. But if it is truly a technical issue that you're either having yourself or having for an applicant, the call center is probably not your number one resource from a technical point of view. If it's programmatic, which you probably know as much as they do, then they would be able to help your applicant. If there's something that you're not able and you need them to get additional resources, they have a lot of information. But that is probably something we should think about, Leslie, of how we guide them for more direct technical assistance.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. For now, my suggestion is that you continue to reach out to VHFA, and we'll put you in touch with the support that you need. But thank you, Rebecca, for clarifying. The call center folks are ready and prepared to speak with applicants for the most part. You guys need more help. And so you have a direct contact to VHFA, and I just put the email address in the chat. You have been using Chad as a contact for a while now. He's going to be stepping back as the program is launched, and we're moving into phase 2, and now the dedicated staff at VHFA, Polly and Michael Plunkett, Polly Tebow, Michael Plunkett, they are dedicated to this program, and I have put their contact information in the chat for you. And at this point, I think it would be best for you to go through them for everything. And if we need to get a direct connection for you to a technical support contact for the program, we can do that, but I don't think we're ready for that yet. So I suggest we just stick with VHFA for now, and they will get you to the right place.
Leslie, if I could just jump in here real quick and just say, hopefully it's been working for you all. And I apologize, my video looks like it stopped working, so I'm going to turn it off. Hopefully it's been working for you all, but contacting VHFA first. So now moving forward using the email address that Leslie put in the chat. And then we'll be able to troubleshoot and get back to you very quickly, either figuring out internally or using Spiridion. So hopefully that's been working for folks. And as we kind of continue to work through any of the technical issues, and I see that Bruce just put in the chat, yeah, we won't be encouraging you all to be doing it, but hopefully working through us.
Thank you, Chad. I want to go through the hands. I see, Kira, I see your hand is still raised, but I think we answered your question. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. Grace, do you have another question?
Yes, so I did put one of them in the chat. I was just wondering how frequently referrals are being sent over through the case management portal, because I know of some clients who applied last week and were instructed to, and at least in one case had a social worker helping and verified that they did check they wanted legal assistance. And those cases haven't come through. And I'm a little bit concerned because I understand there's a hold placed on an application when the person requests legal assistance. And in some of these cases, these are people who are in active foreclosure, and we can't really provide the legal services because of the way our grant is worded, really until they come through the portal to us. And so it creates this timing issue and it makes me nervous. I've actually, yesterday I talked to Andrea Heller about a particular client who is facing potential tax sale. And I told her, please help this applicant, but do not check legal assistance because they'll get caught up and payment may not get processed, prior to the tax sale if she gets caught up in the legal assistance thing. And I don't think that's how any of us want this to be working. So I guess just understanding, first of all, how the flow of cases comes through the portal would be really helpful.
Thanks, Grace. George, do you want to speak to that? I know that we've advised.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who applies needs to go through eligibility review first before the referral is made. Once the referral is made, that's when sort of the hold gets put in place. So, and the hold is really just that we don't move forward with processing the request until after either the legal assistance or the counselor has had a chance to do something. If we refer it to, if once the eligibility review is done and we do the referral and you see a immediate need for something to happen because there's just isn't time for necessarily some other things, like if there's a utility cutoff that's coming up that you want to make sure gets dealt with, then that's when you file a task for the case managers to say, I know we're in the 30 days, but this person needs this right away. Can you please work on this utility bill or whatever?
Right.
And they can do that while also holding back on, say, talking to the mortgage servicer because you guys want to have a chance to do loss mitigation or negotiation with them first.
So George, can you tell me, so it's really, but it's like a pre-eligibility screening that's happening before they get sent through the portal, right? Because I don't see that anybody in my portal currently has had a final determination of eligibility. Correct. And they've been sitting there for a couple of weeks.
Well, there's the income eligibility part that gets them to you, and then there's program eligibility for individual payments. And that's what we wait for until after they've had a chance to talk to you.
And how long is the pre-eligibility piece taking on average? Just so that I understand, like between when I refer somebody over and they check legal assistance, like how long typically will it then take before there's a pre-eligibility screening and they get sent over? Is there an average kind of time frame for that?
George, I'll answer this a little bit more. So a couple of things. One thing, you mentioned that you got like a bunch of them and then you haven't been seeing any. It's because we hadn't set that check in place initially. So we had applications that had kind of like come in, right, through the initial onslaught. They were synced with the case management system. And then we had a discussion internally about should these really be referred before eligibility is determined. So some of these kind of got assigned before we internally said, maybe this isn't the right process. We're getting you involved too early. You're reaching out maybe before eligibility is determined. So there may be some of those that first came in, and that's why you're seeing that change in how frequently they're being assigned to you, right? So that may be one thing. Two, predetermination, pre-eligibility, it is very quick. Just because the initial eligibility is almost system generated, right? Do they meet XYZ, blah, blah, blah. But then it has to go through a QA/QC process. That is taking only a few days right now. And that time will actually probably speed up because, right, they have this volume of applications they're going through right now, or they'll have that continued. They're also getting more familiar with the system. The case manager's productivity will start picking up. There are all kinds of things that will accelerate that. But really, that's within just a few days that we've been seeing that pre-eligibility. It's when we get to program eligibility, things slow down. We have to get verifications from the servicers. All those things start playing into this.
Right. But just to be clear, Rebecca, is it after pre-eligibility that those cases are being referred to us, or are they going through like quality control and all of that before they get sent over for legal services?
So quality happens at both both application HAP eligibility, and program like determination eligibility. So that it happens twice. Because the system determines it one way. We need to QA/QC it and make sure that the system, one, the applicant's entered information is accurate based on documentation, et cetera. And then program eligibility is, so that happens twice. And George, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was at program level and not at pre-eligibility level, but I could be wrong because we talked about it a lot.
Yeah, no, it should be that they're getting referred over.
It's been approved for funding,
HAP
right?
eligibility, their HAP eligibility is done, and then program eligibility has to wait because that's the individual payment to the vendor.
I'll double check and make sure that is the case. The other thing I want to check is if you, and not in the chat, or if you could send an email, maybe with a case ID of a applicant that you know that has a case foreclosure date. Because I'm looking at the prioritization dashboard and I don't see where there is a place to enter. If you are in active foreclosure, please enter your foreclosure date. I am not seeing anybody in my report that has entered that date. That helps our case managers to escalate that, to say we need to address this, like they go to the top of the list, right?
Right. And I'm not necessarily saying people are like, notice of sale part of the foreclosure process. Some are kind of early. I don't know how much you know about Vermont foreclosure process, but it is a long process. Some are at the summons and complaint stage. I mean, we want to be involved in those cases though, and helping them to respond to answers. That doesn't mean that they're at imminent risk of a foreclosure or sale. So yeah, so I don't think I have anybody that I've sent over that is in the late stages of foreclosure at this point.
Okay. So I do know we've had some utility situations like that where they were.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those.
And so we've tried to escalate those, but foreclosure we did put into the application so that if we needed to escalate, we can make sure nobody, is losing.
Thank you. And I don't mean to monopolize, but while we're chatting, Rebecca, it would be helpful to understand if there's some way to have like back and forth communication with the case manager, because I am inputting tasks and it's just not clear to me. And maybe I don't understand how the portal works well enough to know if those tasks are being acted on. And it would just be really helpful if we could communicate with the case manager so that we understand what steps they're taking in response to our communication. And the other thing that I know in talking to some other folks as well is that if there's some way for us as legal services providers or housing counselors to be able to upload documents on behalf of clients, they really struggle to do that. And I know like on the VRAP side and the rental assistance program, there's a way for folks to do that. And that can help streamline when there's missing documentation for us to be able to do that on their behalf.
I just saw Sarah jump on camera, and I have a feeling, are you going to show the upload? Because you do have the capability to upload documents. I didn't know if that's what, is that why you popped on, Sarah?
Helpful.
I don't know why I popped up. My video's been on, but I can definitely share that on my screen if that's helpful for folks.
And we've had a number of agencies ask about this. So I think it would be helpful to walk through.
So tasks are good too, but if you're not comfortable like assigning a task or knowing how that goes, please at least input case notes, because sometimes you're like, okay, maybe there's not action that needs to be taken on this, and we can show that quickly right here too of how you can enter case notes. If it's more of a guidance and not an action thing that you need from your case manager. I will also talk to our case management team about, you can see who the case manager is that's assigned. Maybe I can get permission for them to put out an email directory of who those people are, and maybe you can have some direct contact with them. I just need to find out, like, we don't want to interrupt their flow, right? So like figuring out when it's appropriate, when we'll have to figure that out, but let me see what I can do about having some.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know enough
especially
about the
in an
notes
escalated
to know
situation.
whether that was an effective way to communicate with the case manager. I think we just don't have enough familiarity with.
I guess if it's an escalation issue, I don't know, George and Polly chime in here. if maybe the escalation is then taken to VHFA and they decide, hey, do we need to contact, because you guys do have direct access to our case managers. Do you guys decide, hey, I need to reach out to Ingrid or whoever, because we need this addressed now? Like, I don't know if you want to filter it that way or how you best see us servicing that need.
Well, I think that obviously if there are notes to be added to the file to make sure that it's in the system, that's we would encourage you guys to do that because we see the notes too.
Yeah.
But if there's like an immediate issue that somebody's having a particular question, I do think that you should contact the homeowner assistance mailbox so that Mike and Polly can find out what's going on and do some drilling in and then ask the questions over at with the case managers and get back to you guys. And if it's something that requires everybody being on the same call, they can arrange that too. But hopefully that will work.
Thanks.
I think
It's just helpful
Sarah,
to understand a little bit better.
Just Sarah is gonna, I think, it's got here how you can upload a document. So let's let her go through that just so that.
So there's a floating menu.
To do that.
Sorry. Yeah, so there's a floating menu down here. That's what it's called in the system. These 3 dots on the bottom left of your screen. You can add a note and see notes about a particular case. And then you can upload documents here. So you click on documents. You can see the documents that are uploaded already. And then you can choose a document type down here. You can search for one or just scroll through lots of different document types. And then upload the document and it will appear here. I don't know if this gets, is there a notification sent, Rebecca, to the case manager when a new document is added?
Yeah, the case manager will be notified that additional documents are there, and especially if it's needed some more information, right? So if they've reached out and said, I need blah, 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 there's definitely a trigger that says that now this has been fulfilled, kind of a deal. So, but they do get also high level alerts, but it can actually move the status if it's meeting a requirement. So that's an essential step. Yeah.
And so we did kind of quickly go right to this documents, but one note I have on the notes screen is when you click on notes, you have to expand this notes details tab in order to see the notes on a case. So it may look like there are no notes, but if you click on that gray box, it will open up and you'll see lots of communication. This is the test portal, so not as thorough and doesn't have as many notes as live cases may have. So your view will be different. Does anyone have any other questions while I'm sharing my screen that you want to go over about the floating menu?
I just want to jump in here real quickly about the documents. The system can take PDFs as well as common image formats if people are taking photos of documents. But if you're facilitating this, it's probably better to do PDFs as much as possible. Photos are great for a quick thing if people are doing this on their own with their smartphone, but the quality is just never as good.
If anybody else has a question about the system, while Sarah has her screen up, if you could unmute yourselves and ask the question, that would be great.
I want to stress one other thing while Sarah has her screen up. So you see at the top, there's this beautiful button for new application. And you can enter an application on behalf of an applicant. My suggestion would be, if the applicant has access to a computer, has access to email, that you walk them through the applicant portal as an assistant instead of entering it for them, because they're going to receive email notification, like they're going to have a lot more access to their information if it's done through the applicant portal. Now you will want to put yourself as, you'll assign yourself as the HCA. And you can even, if they want you to be able to speak on their behalf, you can assign yourself as the authorized representative. But by doing it through the applicant portal, they have so much more self-service access, information. They're not going to have to come to you for every little thing. But if you enter it really on their behalf, you're going to be a little bit more, they're going to be a little more reliant on you for all the details, all the things. So it's really, that is for somebody who does not have internet access, does not have a computer, does not have any way to input this information online. If they do have the functionality, but just are struggling on how to maneuver technology or to answer some of the questions seem too hard, please use the apply now link through the front end and just sit with them and say, I'm entering this on their behalf. It's just much more successful. We've seen in lessons learned through other states where the applicant then becomes a little bit more empowered, understands what's going on, gets status updates, that kind of thing. So I just wanted to bring that up while we were talking about entering, and make sure too, if you're entering the application, that you mark whether it's a walk-in, a phone, or a paper app kind of, because we'll look for different things like that you've uploaded to paper app, stuff like that, if depending on how you've answered that. So just a little bit of FYI while we were on the screen.
Sarah, while you have this up, I think I know the answer to this, but Cody asked a question related to tasks, which is whether the HCA can assign a task for an application that's not assigned to them, but they got a call about it.
I can answer that. No, you won't even see that application. If it's not assigned to your HCA, it will not show up in your queue. You don't have the you cannot see all applications. You can only see applicants that are assigned to you.
Okay, could I expand on my question then a little bit?
Sure.
What I've experienced is numerous people being referred to me by phone with questions they have or concerns about an application they've submitted. And some of them are about utility shutoffs pending and, can the process be expedited? I think I've learned now that task is one way to do that. And so they have not been assigned to me, but through the system, but they've been referred to me. And so I'm trying to help them in communicating with the utility. So I'd like to, today I learned about that task function. I'd like to be able to put a task in for that applicant, even though they're not assigned to me, because they have indeed been referred to me. They're getting my number from whoever else they're calling.
So it sounds like it's probably one of those timing things, right? That they haven't gone, they have applied and they have these concerns and they've been referred to you, probably because they called the call center for assistance. Or maybe they haven't applied, but they called the call center and are getting ready to apply. So if the call center were to enter an application, they would, if they referred it to you, they would assign it to you, but you may not be seeing it yet because they may not have gone through eligibility. So there is that kind of that timeline that we talked about earlier, right? That maybe it's in the system, but they have not made it through eligibility to where they're popping up in your queue. So until that happens, you will not see them. If you do have an escalated situation, that's when I would suggest you reach out to that VHFA email address and ask for further assistance on the behalf of the applicant. Because that's the directive that we have, and that is until it's past eligibility, we cannot assign them.
Okay, and so which VFHA email address should I reach out to for these urgent utility cases?
Leslie put it in the chat.
Is it the homeowner assistance at vhfa.org?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Cody, on the utility shutoff issue, I just wanted to share with you and actually everyone else on the call that Vermont Legal Aid has made a request to the Public Utility Commission to amend its emergency shutoff rule. Currently, it requires utilities to give notice of the Emergency Rental Assistance Program and prohibits shutoffs when there's a pending VRAP application. We've asked that the rule be expanded to now include the Vermont HAP program as well. And just yesterday, the Department of Public Service responded positively in favor of our request. So the likelihood is that the PUC will adopt the change to the rule, and I will let you all know as soon as we hear that that's happened, because then it should just be a quick call to the utility with an application number that should stop any shut off.
And I will speak to that just a little bit. We've had we've had a lot of success with that. We've worked with Green Mountain Power. We've worked with some different servicers that are just calling in, verifying. We're even creating reports for them where they can just look and see, is there an active application for their customer? So we're trying to make it as easy and quick for everyone to get that information, verify it, and keep those people from being disconnected. But it does sound like the servicers are very open to, as long as they have an active application ID, to suspend that disconnection.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
So we have a couple of folks with their hands up. Any of these folks with hands up, Cody, Andrea, Tricia, Barbara, Bruce, are any of your questions about what Sarah is showing us on screen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Bruce.
Bruce, do you want to share your question?
Yeah, I had a walk-in yesterday. I skipped the whole contact demographics section. I just didn't see it. I'm in her file, but I can't, and I've done edit, but I can't actually enter anything. So I don't know if that's a glitch or just because it's in pre-eligibility or whatever.
You already submitted the application?
Yes.
Yeah, then you can't make any changes to it. Once the application is submitted, and you see that more on the applicant front end, it says that once you submit this application, you cannot make any changes, like in big warning letters. On the back end, it is a little different. They don't have as many required fields because sometimes there's an escalation that's needed. Sometimes it's just getting something in. For whatever reason, there's a little bit more leniency there. I do suggest you spend as much time making sure you fill out as much information, because it will make it much faster for the case manager, because they are required to go back and get that information for reporting services. But yeah, and the case manager now will have to follow up and update that information. Once it's submitted, it leaves your availability.
All right, thanks.
My question too did actually revolve around the timing. What I'm wondering is that I can think, especially for Janet, who's our shared equity specialist, where we might actually have a client that we're working with first, and then we're actually referring them to VHFA, but we've already sort of done the work before they've even applied. So I guess what I'm wondering is, around the level 1, 2, and 3, right? If we've done the budget or pulled their credit report or done some of these steps prior to them actually engaging with you, is that okay? Because we're preemptively serving them before their technical intake date with you. So from that billing level standpoint, just want to figure that piece out. And on that same vein, is if we are working with someone, should we be selecting CHT then so that they do end up coming back to us, I would assume? Okay, I see shaking heads for that. So
No. I mean, George, you handle that.
Yes, you should select, if somebody, if you're working with somebody and helping them apply, then you should definitely make sure that to the extent that you can select it, that for the purposes of the counseling, that you select yourself. It should automatically go back to you anyway, but just to make sure. For purposes of, well, what if we've done some stuff earlier? Well, does that mean that you're not going to do the level 1 after the application comes in, or does that mean that after the application is referred to you, or does that mean that you've pretty much already done the level 1? I mean, what is that?
I mean, I could see instances where we might actually have done an assessment, which would include getting income and debts and some budgeting to figure out like what makes sense for them. So I feel like it's highly probable actually that we could have really kind of ticked off all the boxes. And from a client standpoint, I hate to be like, oh, well, we have to do this again because the funder requires it. It's not about helping you at this moment. Now we're ticking off boxes. Like that doesn't feel right if we've already done the work. So I guess that's what I'm worried about, is some of that timing, is if we're because people, especially our shared equity folks, they're going to come to us first, right? They have a relationship with Janet, many of them. So, you know, they might start with us not knowing what's out there. So I expect that might be a frequent thing that happens, but I don't know how to do that level 1, level 2, level 3 pieces. Like once they, you know, if we can prove we did it, right? I mean, we could put it in our system with the date after they actually do the VHFA intake, but we would have done the work beforehand. I don't know if that's, I don't know. I guess I'm trying to figure, am I overthinking this?
Well, I guess you know, people who are in the shared equity program would be coming to you anyway, right? I mean, whether or not they applied for us. So there is some work that you would just be doing that isn't necessarily something that you would be looking to us to pay you extra for. That said, that I do think that we want to pay for services that are provided after the referral. And I guess the question is for you guys just to say, you know, we want to get you in the system, and then we'll work more broadly on your broader issues. And I know that, you know, you want to be responsive and people are worried, and, you know, that's sometimes hard to manage. But I think that would be the best way to go. I think it's hard to, if you're doing, to say, well, it was work you did before they even got an application in. It's hard to say, well, then, you know, it's something from the program to pay for. So it's a matter of timing. And I appreciate the kind of stickiness it creates, but I don't know what else to do about that.
So I guess she was, I'm thinking of, you know, the 4 households that came in the week before this opened. Those folks, and part of what we're doing is waiting for it to open, and we didn't know it would be the following week. Nor would I want to have put them off a week to start anything.
Yeah.
Kayla asked a similar question, George, in the chat. So I think this is something the HCAs are wrestling with.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can bring it back to the folks who make the rules and see what they say about it. But I mean, as a general matter, the intention is to pay for work performed after the eligibility review is done, because, you know, you're going to have done the work, and what if the person wasn't eligible? You know, you find out they're a renter, or you find out that, you know, they have some source of income that puts them over the eligibility limit, or you know, something else for some other reason. So, you know, it will have been done one way or the other. I mean, the time will have been spent, the work will have been done. You know, I don't want to encourage people to do that on the hope that this person will become eligible so that they can then get billed to us. So I think we just need, it would be there would be issues with trying to be too open about that. But I'll check, and we'll see what we can do. But I would say, from a rule of thumb is, you know, if these people are going to want counseling services, make sure you have the eligibility determination done first, and to the extent that you want to bill us for it.
So could we start them, like if we did the level 1 before they came through, could we start them then at level 2 if that's really from that intake date going forward?
Well, I mean, I think that if you haven't finished everything related to level 1, say, right, you know, let's say you got some information, but you didn't necessarily go through a whole budgeting process with them. That's what really the level 1 is for, right? I mean, you're getting some information, just helping them with the application. So the level 1 is really, let's see what you got and let's work with you on making a plan. The level 2 is just a little more detailed version of that. So I would say that just collecting the information isn't necessarily the only thing that a level 1 is. So you can still charge for the level 1 as long as that's what's happening once you get the application number back, right? Or the referral back.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, George. Andrea, you've had your hand up for a while. Do you want to say a few words about your challenges?
Yeah, I just put this in the chat, but I had a client who couldn't access the applicant portal, and she received a message, invalid credentials, and I did forward this to VHFA and maybe Rebecca, but I haven't heard back from the client, so I don't know if it was resolved. And then I was wondering, why would she have received that message in the first place? Just looking for clarification on that.
HFA or Rebecca, do you have any ideas about why that invalid credentials response would be generated?
That's really typically due to, go ahead, Rebecca.
Go ahead. Well, Dave, I would really need a little bit more information to know, like, we have found recently that a lot of people are trying to enter their previous map information into this portal, thinking that they can just cross the programs like it's still, like it's just active. And so they've been trying to put their old credentials into the new website, or they've just are still going back to the old website and trying to get into it there. So there's been a lot of confusion about how do they, that they need to fully re-register and that kind of stuff. I need a little bit more on this, maybe where Dave's going, like browser information, verifying the web address that they're accessing, what their, email address is, so that I can look at things on the back end. Like, we can't just search by name. So there's some information that maybe you can provide a little bit more detail.
Sure, I did provide her email address, I believe.
Yeah, and I think we looked into the system and did not find anyone anywhere, which means that they probably were registered to another program and not to this one, was our initial thought. So if you can just make sure that she goes through the re-registering process. And if they have registered successfully, they should get an application ID emailed to them. They also should say, you've registered, your registration is successful. There's a couple of emails that will give them some confidence that they have done that successfully, and then they can get access. So those would be kind of your trigger points to make sure that there's success. And also if there's a problem, like if they didn't get the email that said, that they registered successfully, and I think there's a 2-level authentication. So they'll first get one that says, here, enter your code and verify your email address is real, right? And then they enter that code, and then they get a successful launch, and then they can log in. So making sure they go through all the steps and making sure they're using the right credentials in the right portal, I think has been a lot of the confusion that we've seen through, the 2 programs that existed.
Okay, thanks.
And Andrea, if you continue to have problems, because I think you might have reached out to me on this one as well, reach out again, and then I'll be in communication with the details to Rebecca. Is that good?
Yeah. Great, sounds great.
Tricia, you've had your hand up as well, and I'm wondering if you had your question answered, or if you still have a question that we can chat about.
Thanks, Leslie. I do have actually a couple questions, if that's okay. One is, I think, pretty straightforward. On the VHFA website, one of the lists of like acceptable pieces of income documentation is bank statements, but within the application, there's no spot for folks, or for me, or applicants to upload a bank statement. And so I'm just wondering if I should take that off the list of documents that folks can provide to me if they don't have like a tax return or Social Security award letter.
I'd have to look. We'll have to look at the application and make sure that there's a spot available.
Okay.
I don't know, Rebecca, if you know off the top of your head, but we can check on that.
I think it depends on, sorry guys, I'm working with a couple of different states, so the requirements are a little bit different, but I think it depends on also the type of employment. So like, I think if you're self-employed, the bank statements might be acceptable, but if you're not, I think it's like your pay stubs, and there was some discussion between W-2s and 1040s, and there have been some adjustments made specifically to what is applicable for what type of. So yeah. I think in general, bank statement doesn't necessarily.
Right, it doesn't come up as an
option. That qualification,
yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah, that may be the issue.
Okay, that was my suspicion when I was in there. I had one that was the only documentation they had of their Social Security, and I couldn't find a spot. So I was like, oh, I think we'll have to. I'm just trying to think of it from the intake perspective, to try and save everyone time so that I can help them apply with one appointment instead of it taking two, because when we get in there and we need something that we don't have, so we try to just anticipate all of that. So that's helpful. Thank you for answering that.
And I think that you guys providing this type of feedback, right? So if we see this time and time and time again, this is a problem for, you know, your side or for a timeline for the applicants or different things, we could always bring that in and say, okay, this isn't just, you know, an exception anymore. This is a real pain point. We can discuss internally, like if we need to make alterations, if it's allowed, right? To make things a little bit easier or as the program moves along. But that feedback's always very welcome to us, just to know where you're experiencing challenges. So please continue to share.
Okay, thank you. And then if it's okay, I have a second question I'd like to ask. Okay. This one is in regards to like the referral process. I guess this second question is a two-part. Sorry. I have received some referrals for a couple folks that I did the application with them, and in the two places that it asked, they said they did not want counseling or legal assistance, and yet they still came into my to NeighborWorks email as a referral from VHFA. And so I'm wondering, are any that are assigned to us also going through there, and that's why we're getting those. And again, I'm just asking from the intake side, because I do have someone that's helping with that, and that when those emails come in, reaching out to schedule an appointment with me. And I'm wondering if it's going to require going in to the case management portal each time to determine if it is indeed the level 1 counseling that they need, or if it was just assigned to me for another reason. Or I guess my question is, are there any, or why the two or three that I'm thinking of got referred to me if they chose no counseling or legal assistance?
Yeah, I think Rebecca, if you or Tricia, if you could send us the application numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we can refer those to Rebecca, and she can do some sleuthing and see what happened in the system and why that happened. That would be great, because that's not the intent.
Right. Okay. That's what I was.
And I have a feeling that maybe they filled you that you assisted with the application, and so. Or maybe they missed one. I don't know. I need to see, but it could be that I need to make sure that the system, even if, because we try to take on the side of caution that people make mistakes, right? So that if they said this HCA and they have named you by name is helping with me with my application, and then they say they don't want housing counseling services, that maybe that's an error. Maybe the system is defaulting that you they've taken the initiative to name you by name, right? But they don't want service, that maybe that's an error. So I'd have to check and see those specific situations. And then I guess, George, we need to talk about that. If they name them that they are a named source, but they don't want housing counseling, how do we want the system to override assigning them for further follow-up? Because what if that's a mistake, kind of a thing. So. Yeah,
I mean, I think, we can talk about that offline, but it does sound like that's an issue. Barbara and Cody have both raised that as well. If you guys could send that, Leslie's just popped up the email address. If you could send that information there, and we can check it out, because we asked for who helped you apply because of the application assistance dollars, and then there's the counseling dollars that are separate. And I mean, if somebody specifically has said no, I don't want it, then you guys shouldn't have to spend time trying to sort that out.
Okay. Thanks.
That's great feedback, Tricia.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know.
Yeah. And then just another question, and this is my final question. Sorry, the second part of that is regarding the counseling referrals. I know Rebecca spoke earlier, and we received an email previously about that initial wave of referrals that came in to us before they were kind of went through the pre-eligibility process. And so we were told to like hold off on those, but are those, will those come through a second time? I'm just trying to figure out, are those people that I don't want to be holding up their application. So is it safe to assume that those will come through after they've been determined eligible, or how do I differentiate between which ones were from the first wave?
George, should we send out that little cheat sheet that had the screen that said, if it doesn't show this status, don't, like, so they could look at it by status and say, oh, these people have met that requirement. Now let's go ahead and assist them.
I don't think we did, Rebecca. So that's really helpful information for you all. So we can follow up today. I already went over a few pieces that I know we're owing you all. So we can send that as well, so that you can see the so you can tell that when the status reaches a certain point, you could go forward with reaching out to them.
Okay, but from this point forward, any that are sent to us for referral are ones that we would go forth with scheduling. Okay, thank you for answering those questions. I really appreciate it.
Is that change in place, Rebecca and George, that at this point now the HCAs will get a notification when a new case has reached the point of being ready for
I have
counsel?
that on my list to verify, Leslie. We can confirm that in our afternoon meeting.
Sounds great. Thank you. Before we lose you all, it's 9:59. I know there are some outstanding questions in the chat, and I can go through those with Chad and Polly and Mike and George and get back to you directly, but because I have them written in the chat, that creates an option for us to follow up with you after the fact about those. But I did also want to thank you for returning contracts. For those of you that have returned those signed contracts, that's super valuable for us, but we're waiting for 3 others, and I understand that some of you just got them back from us with the budget amount in there, and we are looking to get those as soon as possible back from you all, the 3 that have not returned them yet. And I mentioned that I'll be following up, that one of us will be following up with some more information for you, including the paper app and some of the answers to questions that you all asked today. So that'll be coming soon. And that we're gonna let Chad move on to some of his other roles at VHFA. He was a main contact for you as the program launched. And now Polly and Michael, as I mentioned before, are going to take over with that homeowner assistance at vhfa.org. That's the best way to reach them because they can trade off in responding to the emails that are coming into that box. So that's the best way to get answers at this point, and they know exactly how to triage questions that you all have, and when to find a technical assistance support staff, when to find a case manager to reach out to. So they are the experts at this point, and so I encourage you to send your communication and questions to them, including your contracts. So the 3 of you, the 3 HCAs that have not yet returned your contracts, you can send those when they are signed to homeownerassistance@vhfa.org. And that would be great. And we'll also make this recording available on the affiliates toolbox page that we've shared with you in the past. We'll put that there and try to put it in the email message to you all too. But I don't want to. Sometimes it takes a while for us to get that recording downloaded and uploaded. And so I don't want to hold off on getting you what you need. So so you can always look for the recordings of these meetings here on this page, as well as the promotional materials for this program, if you have asked about that, and then some materials from our prior meetings. But we'll continue to reach back out to you with the information that we promised. But thank you so much for taking time to be with us this morning and for all you're doing with these applicants.
Mm-hmm.
Leslie, before we go, it's been great working with you all. I'm sure I will continue to see you all, but just wanted to follow up and see if there are plans for future gatherings.
Yeah, I wanted to chat with Polly and Michael so that they can kind of take over that role. I know we all find these really valuable, and so it would be great for just to expect that'll happen, but I want to talk with them about how, about what their bandwidth is for that, and we'll why don't we also get back to you about that when we send you out the additional material that we promised. So maybe I would say like in about 2 weeks. So that, I mean, that seems at least in 2 weeks. It'd be great if we had weekly meetings, but I don't know if any of us can have the time for that, but at least in 2 weeks to have another meeting like this. I think it would be helpful if it seems like we always have enough to talk about when we do meet. So let's try to shoot for that. But thank you so much for your time this morning and for all you're doing. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, y'all.